Hi, I'm Brandon. I love 2002 Christmas movies.
I'm Dan, and I despise 2002 Christmas movies.
I'm Alonso, and Stephen who, and this
Is the Deck the
Hallmark
Hallmark
Podcast.
Deck the Hallmark, it's his podcast. Brandon and friends host his podcast.
We hope you like this jolly podcast.
Hi, everybody. Happy. Oh my gosh. It's Monday.
It's Monday.
It's Monday of Bramblefest week.
It's Monday of Bramblefest week.
Bramblefest week is here.
Alonso, in just 2 short days, you'll be here. It's unbelievable.
packing my bags as we speak.
I love it. Hey,
Wow.
Can I tell you what I was worried about?
Hopefully not as you speak, because we are
We
doing a
need to.
podcast.
Well,
we
hey,
need-
yeah,
we're gonna need
pause.
your
Yes, of
undivided
course, of
attention
course.
For the next 35 or
Yes.
so.
Fair
I
enough.
thought for sure you were going to say I love Steven Spielberg Christmas movies, and that was a bridge too far for me.
No, I
was
wouldn't do
not
that
going
to
to
you.
say that.
I wouldn't do that to
couldn't.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. Alonso,
And he's made so many. You know?
Yeah. Big cannon there.
Alonso, take us back to 2002. What were you into? What were you doing in 2002?
So in 2002, I was an editor at a magazine called The Advocate, which is still around, but in a much smaller form, as most print media is these days. My distinct memory of seeing this movie, I have gotten to a point now where I don't try to police movie theaters. If I'm buying a ticket and I'm seeing it with regular folks and somebody whips their phone out or somebody's talking too loud, unless it's egregious, I let it go. It's like, whatever. But if I'm at a press screening and everybody there is like a professional, allegedly, I expect better behavior.
Yeah.
So I remember being at the screening of this movie and the credits are happening, the cool animated credits. I love animated opening credits. And this couple behind me will not shut up. And they are not using their inside voices. It's just like, blah, 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 blah. And I turned around and told the guy to put a sock in it in a much more polite way, I'm sure. And he responded by throwing popcorn at me. And I'm like, all right,
Wow.
I'm not getting into this. Not today, Satan. But yeah, so that is the thing that I remember most about going to see the press screening of Catch Me If You Can at the end of 2002.
Did they stop talking?
Once the movie started, yes. But like this notion that the credits don't count as part of the movie,
These
no.
credits.
You're talking
No.
over a John Williams score, mister.
Thank you. Exactly. Like that kid throws his fishing line in the water, and then that is your cue to shut up, everybody.
That's right. That's right.
Remember DreamWorks?
Yeah.
What a time.
Can you imagine throwing popcorn in someone's face?
What was in my back? It was the
Okay.
back of my head. But still, doesn't make it any better.
It does not. It does not. Has that happened since?
The popcorn specifically, no. I have occasionally had to school some fools about their behavior in a professional atmosphere. Although the moment we can't stop talking about, Dave White is at a screening of a movie, and there's a young lady on her phone, and he tries to get her to like put it away, and she stares him dead in the face and says, "There is no phone."
Wow.
Whoa.
What do you even do with that?
That's
you know?
a move right there. That is a move.
That's like you almost have to respect it.
It is who thought the psychological warfare card was going to get played, but
You're the one on the phone.
That's right. You're the one on the phone.
catch her if you can.
That's exactly right. That's right.
love it.
That's right. I remember specifically one of my earliest movie theater experiences was Toy Story. And I remember my dad getting really mad at these teenagers that were yucking it up in the theater.
The thing you have to give is at kids' movies. I used to get real mad at kids. I still, if people are talking to movies, it drives me nuts. But at a kids' movie, you just have to be like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is why we're here.
I think it was the fact that they were teenagers, just goofing
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And you take your whole family. We are a family of 5 kids, so you take the whole family.
He spent
That's a
some
whole
money.
thing.
He
That's
spent
a whole
some
thing.
money. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Toy Story because I remember going to the screening of that I got invited to when I was living in Dallas was on a Saturday morning, and I was like, ugh, I hate seeing these movies with children, But Toy Story was so good that they didn't make a peep.
Yeah.
That's right.
They were silent and engaged throughout. And I was like, that's how I know this movie is great.
That's right.
There you go.
You were going to write it a terrible review too, and then you.
No. I was psyched to see it, but I wanted to see it in a not, but I have reviewed movies though that were like just awful, forgettable kids cartoons. And if the kids start like running around in front of the screen to entertain themselves, that's when I know.
That is when you know.
This is a turkey.
Oh, I know when my kids are not like as locked in on movies pretty quickly. Yeah,
I took them to Rally Road Racers that came out like last year. It was this animated movie. Yeah, no one saw it, and literally no one saw it. It was just us in the theater. My kids were not into it. They wanted to like run around. I was like, whatever.
Yeah, go.
No one else is here.
Literally,
Have
at it, kids.
Yeah.
When somebody throws popcorn at the back of your head right before a movie starts, did it take you a second to get like? I'm sure that was frustrating. Did it take you?
I couldn't. It was one of those things sometimes, where like something happens and you're just so not ready for it, you don't even have a response. You're like, that was not where I saw this going. Yeah. But yeah, at this point, it's just like, all right, fine. You're beyond repair.
Were you a film reviews editor for The Advocate? Like, did you write a review on this movie?
I was the arts. I started out as deputy arts and entertainment editor and became the arts and entertainment editor. But I pretty much just reviewed movies that had like some specifically LGBTQ plus content rather. I mean, later I think for the website I would start doing more stuff like when Legally Blonde came out or whatever. But yeah, it was not a movie I reviewed. But I was a member of LA Film Critics, so I still went to see it.
Of course, yeah, the esteemed LA Film.
You have to, of course. Let's talk about it. Catch Me If You Can. It premiered on December 25th. I don't know if you heard. It's Christmas.
Christmas. That's why we're here. Yeah.
2002, and it went a little something like this. As Alonso mentioned, the movie kicks off with a great animation title sequence set to John Williams music. And if you're not in after that, I wrote this down, Alonso. If you're not in during that, I don't know what to tell you.
Agreed.
Cut to a clip from the TV show To Tell the Truth. Three fellas come out all claiming to be the same person, Frank. How do you say his last name?
Abagnale.
Thank you, Junior. One of them really is, and claims that prior to his 19th birthday, he successfully posed as a pilot, a doctor, and a prosecutor. A con man, if there ever was a con man. And they're asked who finally found him. How did he finally get caught? And it cuts to Christmas Eve, 1969, when FBI agent Carl Hanratty?
Hanratty.
Thank you. Shows up to a French prison to pick up Frank, who at the time is very sick. Despite one last escape attempt, Frank finally gets him because Frank is just. I'm sorry. He finally gets him because Frank is too dang sick to really make a good attempt. Cut back to 1963. It is Christmas time. Frank's dad, Frank Sr., is being recognized for being a great man, but Frank knows that his dad is a con man, and just watching his conning technique, he's inspired. And it's all great until it's not. And his father's tax problems with the IRS forced the family to move from their nice house to a little danker. On Frank Jr.'s 16th birthday, his dad gives him a checkbook with his own checks, and inside it is with an account that he put $25 in. But he has 50 checks, Dan, and we all know what that means. To the moon! Checkbooks were the Doge before the Doge.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
They
to the moon.
may have had a little bit more lasting power than Doge, but I'm not going to.
We haven't. The story's still writing itself.
How could I be overdrawn? I still have checks left.
That's right.
Yeah.
When he starts at his new school, Frank tries his first con, which is to be the French teacher, and it actually works for a week until he actually is found out. And after later finding out that his mom is having an affair and his parents are going to get a divorce, he is forced with the decision to live with one or the other. And instead of making a decision, he runs away and is going to try to make it on his own. Obviously, Frank tries his hand at some small scams. They don't work out great. But when he sees the lavish lifestyle of a pilot walking into a nice hotel, he comes up with a con to become a Pan American pilot, and it works. Originally, it was just because he wanted to be able to forge those payroll checks that he's created on his own, but then he starts to actually fly on planes. Although I don't think he ever actually did the piloting himself. That's a bridge too far, but he was flying anywhere that he wanted to go. The only problem is that he was so good, he was forging so many checks that the FBI began to take notice, specifically Agent Carl. Carl tracks him down in a motel, but wouldn't you know it, Frank's pretty good at tricks and convinces Carl that he is a Secret Service agent, and he gets away. Now that the FBI is on him as a pilot, he changes his occupation to let's just go with doctor. And as a doctor, he falls in love with a nurse named Brenda. Now, unlike a pilot, a doctor, you see things. You see some stuff, bleeding and stuff, and that's tough. You don't want to do that. But he does want to marry Brenda, and he asks her lawyer father for his permission to marry her, and also if he could help him take the bar exam, which he does, and he passes to become a lawyer. Did he cheat? How did he do it?
Just that smart.
We'll never know. After coming face to face with Agent Carl, Frank has been calling him on Christmas Eve because he's lonely. It's finally, I'm lonely. It finally starts to become too much for Frank at an engagement party when Carl shows up. And so he tells Brenda the truth about who he is. He sneaks out of a window and he tells Brenda to meet him in Miami in 2 days. And she agrees to meet him no matter what. 2 days later, he is parked outside of the airport and sees Brenda, but he also sees Agent. He knows that Brenda has given him up. And so he drives off and comes up with his next plan. He becomes a pilot again, recruits a bunch of new flight attendants to surround him as he walks around an airport to escape to Madrid. 7 months later, Carl has not given up and eventually tracks him down on Christmas Eve in his mother's small French hometown. He finds Frank in a warehouse making tons and tons of checks. After some convincing, Frank surrenders to the French police. We are officially caught up on where the story began, and Carl is bringing Frank back to the U.S., and he tells him that his father has died. And so Frank is just so distraught. He's like, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm going to throw up. He goes to the bathroom and ends up escaping by climbing around the toilet, as one does. He is able to get out from the bottom of the plane after it lands and runs to his mom's house because he wants to see his mom. And that is when he discovers that his mom has had another kid, little kid sister. And it's just then that the police show up and he is arrested as the Christmas song plays, which, if I'm going to go, that's how I want to go. If I'm ever arrested, just somebody pipe in the Christmas song somehow. That'd be really great. Despite technically being a minor, he is sentenced to 12 years in a maximum security prison. Throughout his sentence, Carl would come and talk to him. And one Christmas, Carl brings Frank a check from a case that he's working on. And Frank is actually really helpful in explaining what's going on with this fraudulent check. And so Carl convinces the FBI to allow him to serve the remainder of his sentence working for the FBI. Frank gets a little restless having to work an office job, and after seeing a pilot suit in a store window, decides that he wants to get back in the game. And so he gets a suit. He's walking in the airport. Carl finds him and is like, hey, man, we're not going to stop you. I'll see you Monday. Monday comes. Frank doesn't show up on time. But wouldn't you know it, Frank shows up after all, and he is committed to helping and staying through the duration. And they stay friends.
They do.
They stay friends. Yeah. And we got a whole long update about what Frank is up to now, living a happy life. And that, my friends, was Catch Me If You Can.
We did it.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk about this movie on the other side of the break here on Deck the Hallmark. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Deck the Hallmark. We're talking about Catch Me If You Can, Monday, Christmas movies that Alonso didn't cover in his first Christmas book. Catch Me If You Can is one of those, and we're talking about it today. We're going to start with a hot take. We're going to share exactly how he felt about this movie, and I will start with you, Alonso. Alonso, you saw it in 2002 with someone throwing popcorn in your back. You have seen it now. What'd you think of Catch Me If You Can?
Yeah, it's really terrific. I had seen this pop up on lists of Christmas movies. It was kind of like, is it? Was it? And I hadn't seen it since 2002. And watching it again, at first I was like, okay, so there's a Christmas scene. Okay, there's another Christmas scene. And like, oh, okay, I see what we're doing here. This is one of those movies like about a boy where Christmas is a periodic sort of stopping point of the movie, and it kind of brings together its themes about family, about loneliness, about community, like all this sort of stuff. So I think it handles that really well. I will say, going to read the Wikipedia page about Frank Abagnale after this was kind of a bucket of cold water, because pretty much nothing in this movie
you don't do that.
happened at all.
No, you don't do that. Let him. He helped write it. You don't mess with that. You just let
the
liar lie.
Print the ledger.
There you go.
But I will say that as a movie that is sort of using Christmas thematically the way this one does, I think it's really effective, because I think it really does sort of underscore, the dedication of Carl and of Frank in his own weird way to their lives, and how that has made them alone, and how so much of what Frank is doing is driven with this notion of like getting his parents back together and restoring to the family what was taken from them by the IRS or whoever else. So I think on that level, it is absolutely a Christmas movie, and I think that it's all put together really well. And this is like, what are we calling it now? Mid-period Spielberg? I don't even know. The guy's had such a lengthy career at this point.
It's not even fair. Yeah.
Yeah. We're in the 3/5. I don't even know where this falls, because who knows how long he's going to keep going. But, you got your John Williams score and your Janusz Kaminski cinematography, and DiCaprio and Tom Hanks and an Oscar-nominated Christopher Walken and the great Natalie Baye, and early appearances by, Amy Adams and Elizabeth Banks, and, we've got Martin Sheen in there. Jennifer Garner. Yeah. Ellen Pompeo. So, it does what it says on the box, as my friend Matt Atchity likes to say. Very effective and fun and emotional and all that good stuff.
Alonso, watching the movie in 2024, did you find all those stars to be distracting?
Not really, just because that's a thing that happens when you watch older movies, and even like if you go back to something like, every time I rewatch Singing in the Rain, I'm reminded, Rita Moreno is in this. You think, like, was she 12? That's just a thing that happens as you revisit. I mean, I'm sure you guys, in going through the Disney deep dive, are probably seeing a lot of future stars popping up. So, that was Home Alone 3,
but Home Alone 3. It's all one thing. It's all one thing.
But yeah, it's just that's just kind of one of the fun things about movies is
they're
that,
backing up the truck for Alonso's
very
luggage right now for the
exactly. I've got a few pieces to bring, but yeah, it's just that thing where people start out with these like one-line performances. You're like, oh look, it's so and so who would become a giant thing, and then other times it's somebody who gets a big plum role and then you never hear from them again. So who knows?
I had never seen this movie before, and I loved it. Boy, it's great. It's great. Is it a Christmas movie? I understand.
Alonso articulated it
I understand
perfectly.
why. I understand.
He did it perfectly. I understand this argument.
Hold on. I understand why some may consider it a Christmas movie.
I want to hear what Brad has to say.
I would put this in my Christmas adjacent category. It is a movie that I would watch throughout the year and for Christmas feels, but I wouldn't watch it at Christmas time. And so I understand the argument for Christmas, and I think that Christmas is clearly a very important use of time and all of that. I get it. And the arrest scene, give me all those Christmas feels. But it is, I personally wouldn't consider, I would consider it Christmas adjacent, but give me Christmas adjacent over Christmas any day of the week. And so the movie in and of itself is so good. I had a blast. There's so many good performances, so many great camera shots. The score is so good in this movie. I adored this movie. Dano?
It's a much more muted take. Brand looked in my face and went, "This is not a Christmas movie," earlier. That's what he said. And I was like, Die Hard is and this is. And he goes, yeah, it takes place entirely at Christmas. And then what Alonso said was so beautiful, because Die Hard takes place at Christmas, but could have taken place anytime. Of
course.
This movie Christmas is integral to the feelings of the characters.
I
and
understand.
That's why it's a Christmas movie.
A leitmotif.
That's
if you
right.
will.
I understand.
So my thing is, this movie's better than I remember it. In 2002, and I could be wrong about some of these titles, but I remember there was a new Lord of the Rings movie. I don't remember which one. I remember that Leo was also in Gangs of New York that came out that year. And it got to theaters for us here in South Carolina roughly the same time as Catch Me If You Can. And then I remember there being a rom-com, because my wife and I, the week after Christmas, I was in college. We just had time to see all these movies, and I think it was 2 weeks notice. And I remember it just being one of these movies that I was like, that was a fun, breezy 140 minutes, lesser Spielberg, moving on along. Watching it now, I've not seen it since. Literally have not seen it since 2002. I love this movie. I mean, loved it. I think, Janusz Kaminski, which we don't talk a lot about DPs here on Deck the Hallmark, if you can believe it. But like, this guy is like, made a career off of this thing where light shoots between two characters, and like, the way he shoots stuff for Spielberg is very, very like easily recognizable. And this movie is like just a full amusement park for him. I mean, it's the 60s, cigarette smoke, hazy lights, and he's having the time of his life, knowing they shot this 127 locations in 52 days. And then the cast, Tom Hanks, amazing. Walken, amazing. Amy Adams, Jennifer Garner, on and on and on. And then the other thing is that I remembered about this movie, and this, I do want your opinion on this, Alonso, which is, I was 21. Nope, I was 19 when this movie came out. And, Leonardo DiCaprio, for me, as a 19-year-old, was a laughingstock. Like, I know that everyone knew he was a good actor. What's Eating Gilbert Grape, the sitcoms, all that stuff.
Sure.
But he had come off a run of like Man in the Iron Mask and The Beach and Titanic, where these movies were just about Leo being like, Leo's made another movie where he looks pretty and this is his, like, and it was, and maybe it's just me, because I'd love to hear from you, a little bit older than me. Like, for my generation, it was very much in vogue to just make fun of Leonardo DiCaprio. And so this movie and Gangs of New York come out at the same time with Scorsese and Spielberg. And it's almost like DiCaprio is announcing, hey, guess what? I still am really good at acting. And that, to me, is the thing that I think, I didn't quite contextualize well when I saw it the first time that I did this time.
Yeah, I remember the Leo of that moment. Yes, he had become like every teen girl had a pinup of him from as Jack in Titanic, and he had it was a bit of a joke, and then yeah, he was like planting his flag with these very serious directors, and like, you are going to take me seriously. I'm not just like the Tiger Beat guy. And my thought was, yes, I've always taken him seriously as an actor, like ever since, Gilbert Grape. I thought he was amazing. But this is that period of his career where I didn't buy him as an adult.
Yeah.
So like, is he too old to play this character? Maybe. But is Leonardo DiCaprio convincing me that he is a teenager? Yes, because I thought he looked like a teenager in The Aviator 2 years later, with a mustache glued on him. I'm like, okay, you are not. This is like the high school play about Howard Hughes. For me, it wasn't until The Departed, I think, where I started being like, okay, whatever's happened to your head or something, like, I now believe you as a grown-ass man. But yeah, so I think this is that, and you see this a lot with like, Tom Cruise, Johnny Depp. If you are like the hot, young, pretty thing, you better find like the really legit directors who see the thing in you that you have as an actor, and put you in something difficult or challenging or interesting, so that you aren't just pretty, and so I think DiCaprio was very shrewd about the choices he was making at this point to sort of take him to that next level as a performer.
Yeah.
Great conversation, guys.
Right? I mean, I just want to know if it was. I think like I've heard someone say there's two DiCaprios, pre The Beach and post The Beach. Like I've heard that said before, but that doesn't really line up because he had some success as a child actor that, like, I think he became. It's part of his maturation, but I just feel like for Scorsese and Spielberg to both have a movie come out with him, I think within weeks of each other, nationwide release, like. At the time, that was probably considered a relatively big swing for this guy who had become the Johnny Depp or whatever you want to call it.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I think he was certainly somebody who could open a movie. I think coming off of Titanic, it was like, geez, what is happening out there? But he had already been in Romeo and Juliet at this point. Yes. He had done Marvin's Room and The Quick and the Dead and The Basketball Diaries. So I mean, I think he had racked up enough bona fides as a serious actor that it wasn't like they had cast, no offense, Jonathan Taylor Thomas or something.
Man, he did it.
But I
Frank Abagnale Jr.
Out of order.
In the role of Frank Abagnale Jr., Kirk Cameron. Kirk Cameron is Frank Abagnale Jr. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. He was busy with You Lucky Dog.
Yeah, of course he was.
Years earlier.
Of course.
Let's talk about all the feels. We were talking about what gave us feels, Christmas feels, or the others. Alonso?
To piggyback on something that Dan was talking about, the 60s of it all. Like I'm currently rewatching Mad Men. And so from the Pan Am stewardess uniforms to the Pan Am terminal at, LaGuardia or JFK or wherever that is, that beautiful IMP building where they have that big hallway conversation at the end of the movie. You may know it as Men in Black headquarters.
Yep, of course.
Just all of that stuff I really loved. And I like a movie where Christmas is employed in a poignant manner. Like, I like all kinds of Christmas movies, and I love, if you want to just give me a wheelbarrow full of feels, great, that's fine. But like, if you're using Christmas as a juxtaposition to be like, here's what people who don't have families and don't have close people in their lives, this is what their holiday looks like, these sad phone calls, like that gets me, that hits me in the gut and absolutely delivers feels in that manner. And Amy Adams, I think, is so good in this because it's a character that could just very easily be kind of a two-dimensional, like goofy, victim of this guy. And we don't see a lot of the victims because so much of his check kiting is, it hurts the company, but you don't see individuals like suffering the brunt of it. So to see her, the just devastation that this guy who had swept her off her feet and like gotten her back in good with her parents and was going to marry her and, all the things that she had imagined for herself and their life together, to have it all come crumbling down so quickly. Like she just gives it to you first in that scene in the bedroom. And then when she's standing forlornly in front of the airport, like that is some gut wrenching work.
Crushing.
And, she's, clearly was on her path to bigger and better things.
I mean, obviously the scene where he gets arrested with the Christmas song.
What use of Nat King Cole?
I've never wanted to be arrested before, but like this
everybody knows you have the right to remain silent.
I listen. I'd be down. I'd be down for that situation. It was picture perfect. There's also so many just like great like shots in this movie. Like it's tough to do something like just a camera shift or something that would make you chuckle. But like even the when he first does the thing where he puts the plane in the water, takes it out, gets the little logo off, puts on a stamp, realizes it works, and then the next scene, the camera just goes over top of the tub and it shows you full of planes. It's so funny and it's so subtle and it's so great. And there's just so many of those little things in this movie that are just lovely. Dana?
I have two, and it's fine we're taking our time here because the wait what segment I get the feeling is going to be real sparse. But first is should I rewatch The Terminal feels? I hated that movie when it came out, but it is an unabashed Christmas movie. It is also a Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg movie. And I I've hated The Terminal. I've always thought Catch Me If You Can is a fine movie. And I really, really enjoyed Catch Me If You Can on this watch through. And so now I feel like
right afterwards, it said, a terminal popped up. It was like, you want to watch it?
Yeah, I want to make Bran. I think Bran would really love The Terminal and how cheesy and ridiculous it is.
I've never seen it.
Dude, why are we not doing that for this podcast?
Oh, I didn't have it on a list, but, you know,
it's a Christmas movie. We got it. Yeah.
All right. I'll take your word for it.
All right. Well, yeah.
And I might be signing us up for a disaster because I remember being like, what is happening in this movie? But I now want to see it again. My other feels happened during this podcast in the chat. Kathy Lasota, wonderful, wonderful human being. I've met her. She's great. She said, hot take, White Collar did it better. That trash truck you hear near Alonso's house is coming for your take. Are you kidding me right now? White Collar did it better. Get out of here. The last 2 seasons of that show are unwatchable. Are you joking? The White Collar did it better than Janusz Kaminski, John Williams, and Steven Spielberg? Everybody's entitled to an opinion unless it's that one.
What about Suits? Where's that fall?
Oh my God. Oh.
Dan's tried a lot over the last few years to like to talk about movies or whatever and not make them personal. That's as personal as you've ever gotten.
That is, and as someone who loved White Collar for the first 3, I loved White Collar for the first 3 seasons.
You just said a trash truck is coming for Kathy Lasota.
For her take. Not for her. For her take. Kathy Lasota is salt of the earth, wonderful human being.
Top drawer.
She is the best of the best. And she always has really funny things to say and has out-of-the-box takes. And I've seen a lot of them from her. And sometimes I'm like, nah, I disagree.
Summer Nettleman's with Kathy.
But this take crossed the line, Kathy.
There's a couple
you know
people,
it, I know, we both know it.
A couple people are with her.
Yeah, of course they are. They
also people are really mad about Jonathan Taylor Thomas slander. Yeah. So. Alonso, you gotta think before you speak, but that is dangerous. That's dangerous. Let's take a quick break. We will come back and we will wait. What Steven Spielberg here on Deck the Hallway. You know, it's easy to go back and wait, what a 2017
Hallmark movie. Yeah, where the guy's like, I know you don't have a boyfriend because he would have driven you.
That's right. Can we do it here? Do we dare? We do dare. It's time for the Wait What Is, where we talk about what in this Steven Spielberg movie made us stop and go, wait, what? Alonso?
I have a couple.
Okay.
All right. So there's a whole thing where he goes to this one special tailor who makes the Pan Am pilots uniforms, and it's a whole thing, and it's very internal, yada, yada. Where does he get 8 Pan Am stewardess uniforms for these college girls that he has recruited to basically shuttle him through the Miami airport?
Yeah. That's like the iconic scene from this movie, and it is the biggest question from a plot standpoint.
Yeah.
I just, at that point,
they wanted that shot of the trailer, and they had to work backwards from it.
Yeah, they reverse engineered it, but you just have to feel like he's got a guy at that point. But
yeah, he's got so much money or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
The other biggie, and of course, and again, this is all putting aside the probably none of this ever happened of it all. So it is very clear. The time is very clearly delineated. We're told at the beginning on the To Tell the Truth episode that he did all this before he was 19. We see him receive his driver's license in the mail. So that means he's 16. Well, I'll be generous. I'll even say maybe it was 15 back then to get your New York State driver's license. How could the new daughter of his mother and her new husband be at least 5, if not 6 or 7 years old at the end of the movie?
Well, she's having that affair way earlier in the movie. I mean, I like.
So if the first,
I see what you're saying. No, I see what you're saying. You're right.
Even within that window,
right. Yeah, you're right.
That's true.
No, you're right. Yeah, maybe that's not her kid. Maybe that's the other.
No. He says, "Who's your? Do you have a mommy?" And she points to Natalie Bye.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I'm with you.
Yeah.
So is that it?
That's it.
While we're at the window, I never thought I had to tell my kids to, if somebody walks up to the window and asks, "Do you have a mommy?" you come and get us.
That's right.
But now I have to. I saw it in this movie, and now I'm going to be thinking about it.
It was the 60s. Yeah. Gen X parents were too busy, knocking back highballs.
It was a different time. It was a different time.
Yeah.
I do just want to say, early on in this movie, his mom is spinning around with red wine, reckless, first of all.
On a white carpet.
Yeah. So when the red wine does, obviously, she's spinning around. Some of it's going to spill out on this white carpet. Dancing over top of it's just straight up reckless. It is. And listen. I'm not a clean freak.
Cleanliness. Wait, what? From
That's
Brand.
exactly right.
Whoa,
welcome to Brand does Spielberg. Wait, what's? That's just not what you do.
Brand would be on his knees with seltzer and a sponge.
That's exactly right. Everybody, clear off. Whatever you do, rub it in with your feet. Crazy, nuts, insane. Wait, what? Dan?
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Two really small ones. One, I did have the flight attendant uniforms. I thought that was the one but it was like, at this point. They show him getting a lot of cash, and they do close-ups of the bills. And like 40% of the bills they show are $2 bills. And I looked it up. $2 bills have never been widely in circulation. Why? Why'd you show me a $2 bill? Show me a bunch of 20s, 50s. I know, nitpicky. It is what it is. And then lastly, on the airplane back, Abagnale goes to the restroom because he's heard his father dies, and then he sneaks behind the toilet. And then they film that scene, and they have a camera up top for the restroom. Let's just call that a generous airport bathroom. That is 3 airplane bathrooms. As someone who's 6'5" and has to go in an airplane bathroom from time to time, it's not a great experience.
Again, it was the 60s.
That's
I
right.
think that was they weren't jamming in everybody like sardines.
Do you think that the bathrooms were bigger in 60s airplanes? That's a great. I have no idea. Is that really?
I mean, they weren't. You wouldn't spin around with a glass of red wine in one, but I think they were a little larger than the less than a phone booth you get now.
Sure.
Fair enough.
That brings us to our What the Hallmark, where we talk about what we would still like some answers to. Alonso, what are you still wondering about?
I just kind of wonder, especially now that having looked into this a little more, it's like if somebody tells you that they are a brilliant con artist and liar, do you not vet that book a little harder? It's like if you're somebody who knows how to spin a yarn to your own benefit and get out of it. They were like, once you've written a whole book of them yarns being spun, I don't know. I think there might have been more questions then, but what do I know?
No,
it was the 60s.
It was the 60s.
It was the 60s.
So you mentioned the bathroom, Dan, and the escape just leaves me wondering about the logistics of it. I've never looked at a toilet on an airplane and thought, wonder if I can get under that. But he does. He does wonder if I can get under that. And in fact, he can. Now we've talked, I'm sure maybe the bathrooms are a little bit bigger. Could you still do that? If you had the right gear, could you pop that sucker off and climb through?
Imagine.
I'm sure it's more complicated now. You've got to be a whippet like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes, yeah. But to be in a bathroom, an airplane bathroom, and your first thought isn't I got to get out of here like the normal way. To go, I wonder if there's an alternative exit.
I wonder if I could get under that toilet.
I wonder if I could get under that toilet. Is a wild thing to consider. And then
Just
actually
do not disable the smoke detector.
Don't
They'll
you
really
dare.
get you.
That's a federal crime.
They will really get you for
That's
that.
right. Dan?
Yeah, Frank Abagnale wrote another book in 2019 called Scam Me If You Can, Simple Strategies to Outsmart Today's Ripoff
He
Artists.
didn't ask me. He didn't interview me.
And
for
you
that.
were scammed twice.
I know. He didn't interview
maybe
me.
well, that was after this book. This was 2019, so maybe you should have read the book.
Had he heard?
So I would love to I don't want to read the whole book. That sounds like a lot, but I'd love some quick hitters. I'd love a few things that Frank Abagnale, the guy who, even if he wasn't honest about how he scammed people in the 60s, did scam his way into a Hollywood Steven Spielberg motion picture. I'd love to hear a few of the pointers from his book. That's my What the Hallmark.
Well, there you go.
As my father used to always like to say, there's an old, I think it's a Latin expression, si non è vero è buon trovato, which is, if it's not true, it's at least a good story.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a print the legend situation.
Totally.
That's good. Next week, we will be going, not very far, 2022, for Violent Nights. A movie that we almost reviewed back in 2022, but for some reason the calendar got away from us. But not anymore.
Three-part
It's
preview
happening.
sitch.
It's happening. 2022 Violent Nights. Join us, will you, next week? Maybe Alonso will be here.
What?
I don't know.
In
What?
person?
I don't know why, but maybe he will be. Who can say?
Hmm.
Until then, maybe the first to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Deck the Hallmarks of Bramble Jam podcast is produced by Aaron Shea. For more information on Deck the Hallmark, you can go to deckthehallmark.com. For more information on the Deck the Hallmark family, you can go to bramblejamplus.com. Deck the Hallmark is presented by Philo TV. For a free trial of Philo, go to philo.tv/DTH.